Hi, this is Jay.
This is Bob.
And this is Steve.
And this is Alpha Quadrant 6. We are a science fiction review show. Today we're going to review the Season 1 and Season 2 of the TV show Expanse.
The Expanse.
And the reason why we're doing it is because Season 3 is dropping right now, and we thought that we'd give you a quick primer on Seasons 1 and 2, tell you what we thought about it, how much we enjoyed it. And
Primer?
Yes, of course. Sorry, Bob. Primer.
Primer is what you put on before the paint.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so but you could put primer on theoretically, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
primer is
yourself.
what you paint anyway.
Okay. Right, so anyway, we collectively absolutely love this science fiction show. It's hard science, which means that it's weaving in a lot of real science into the show, which we think is fantastic. This is, Bob, what do you love to call this show? This is the Game of Thrones.
Game of Thrones in space.
Game of Thrones in space.
Yeah.
It really is. This was a show that now sci-fi wanted to create a science fiction show, and when you think sci-fi and science fiction TV, you think lame, C quality, ridiculous stuff, and they wanted to get rid of that reputation. They didn't want to be thought of in that way. It is the sci-fi channel after all. So they really put millions upon millions of dollars into this show, and they wanted to make it like Game of Thrones in space. And in a lot of ways, I think they really achieved that in terms of the the political machinations, the complexity of and the interesting characters. I think they really pulled it off. But we need to talk about it at some point. For me, the most important thing, the best thing about this is the hard science. Yeah. This is the best depiction of science fiction, of what it would really be like to fly and live and maneuver and work in space. It really, the science is spot on. And a lot of that has to do with Naran Shankar, who was the showrunner. This is a guy who's got a degree from Cornell in astrophysics and engineering. He's one of the driving forces of making this super hard science.
Yeah, it is a very realistic extrapolation of our technology into the future. The timeline, it's far enough, it's perfect. We don't know what it's really going to be like a couple hundred years in the future, but it's realistic. It's like, okay, it doesn't bother me. It's not too much or too little. It could be roughly where things are going to be.
And it's based in our solar system.
It's basically our solar system. So we have colonized the moon, Mars, and the belt, which is the asteroid belt and the moons of Jupiter and moons of Saturn, like Titan, and that's it. I don't think beyond that. So,
and there are space stations.
There are space stations. Yes, we basically are filling out the solar system, but we haven't yet gone to other solar systems, other stars.
And that's because we don't have the engines to do it.
And that's realistic because there's very likely going to be a very long time where we're stuck in our own system, but we can't reasonably travel to other stars. And yet, most science fiction skips right over that. They invent warp drive or hyperdrive or subspace or whatever to say, okay, by the time we're really going into space, we're going to be zipping around to different solar systems. But they say, no, that's not what's going to happen, actually. Most of our future, for the foreseeable future, we're going to be living in this solar system. So, we're going to absolutely be civilizing and fleshing out this solar system. I love that.
Right, and it's almost virgin territory in that, right, often the science fiction will skip over that period where we're relegated to our solar system. So I like that, and this is kind of new territory in a lot of ways.
It's also good storytelling because you want to have that space adventure feel, right, to science fiction, where you're flying from one place to the other in your personal spaceship or in a spaceship, and there are destinations that you got to get to, and space itself is a character in the show. Most science fiction is you're zipping from planet to planet, solar system to solar system. Here, you're just going from planet to planet or base to base in our own solar system. It's perfect. The distance makes sense. The distance is good. The risks of interplanetary travel are there. But you can get there in a reasonable amount of time. Right. And the only real technological gimme they have, which is fine, I mean, you get a couple hundred years in the future, is the new engines. They have engines that are just really powerful, so you can zip around the solar system.
Yeah, they even spent time explaining to you about the engines.
They develop it,
Now, the thing that I love is that they've had people colonize Mars and people colonize the belt, and what's happened is new societies have come into existence now. So the people that live on Mars identify as being Martian.
Yes.
And the people out in the belt think of themselves as belters. And the other cool thing is that enough generations have gone by where they're starting to, in a sense, evolve to live in those environments. So as an example, the Belters really can't survive on Earth because the gravity is too strong. They have to actually be submersed in water to be able to handle the gravity.
Yeah, and very few science fiction shows actually acknowledge the existence of gravity.
Or even lack of atmosphere, things like that.
So every planet has 1G. All of the ships have 1G.
Right.
It's never a thing. But here, it's a huge plot point. What they did was, most of the Belters, I think the biggest colonized station is Ceres, and they basically hollowed it out and spun it up so that you're living on the inside, and the centrifugal force is creating what is like 0.2 G, enough so that you can function, but not enough that they can adapt to like an Earth-like gravity. And Mars is somewhere in between. So the Martians can exist on Earth, but they got to take drugs, and it's really hard for them.
Right.
And
the sun is very powerful to them.
The sun is very powerful.
Gravity really is a distinct character in this entire show. It's such a character that the scripts for the series are color-coded depending on the gravity of the scene, the real gravity of the scene.
That's cool. What a great idea.
So to distinguish between Earth 1G gravity or lower Martian gravity or Belter gravity or microgravity, the script is color-coded, so they know, all right, we're going to have to deal with these specific things because it's this color. We're going to have to deal with these special effects. So it really is a distinct character unto itself. And there are just many scenes. I mean, they even deal with Coriolis forces, where if they're pouring soda, they're not going to pour it like this. They pour it like this, and it goes at a 45-degree angle into the cup. I mean, when have you seen that in a science fiction movie? You really don't see that, something like that. That attention to detail.
And that permeates the entire show.
The entire show, even the space battles, they're not like, I mean, a lot of science fiction, especially Star Wars, and we all love Star Wars, but a lot of it is like World War II battles and dogfights in an atmosphere, and that's just not the way. Orbital mechanics does not work that way, and that's fine if you want to have a more fantasy aspect to your science fiction. That's fine. That's your thing. But we need more hard science like this, because this is how it's going to really be like when we get there.
And they're dealing with things like, okay, they just fired missiles at us. We have to accelerate away from them. How much acceleration can we take to beat those missiles?
Right.
Or it's like their math is a character too, because they're dealing with the mathematics of acceleration and distance and speed, so
right. And they don't have inertial dampeners, but they do have these intense drugs that put you in the seat, so you can actually survive those types of maneuvers, right?
But their characters are dying because of these things. Like it's a deadly universe, just like the real world.
The stakes are high,
exactly,
and they're always living on the edge. And when you're on a station, one thing goes wrong, man, you can't beam out.
Yeah.
So I love it. Yeah, the stakes are really high. It's good. It's very good storytelling.
Yeah, Game of Thrones' effect is that a character can die.
Yeah.
And I like that. It makes everything it makes the stakes so incredibly high.
So the setting, fantastic. They hit a neglected sweet spot, I think, of science fiction. That's great. The science is solid all the way through. Let's talk about the plot.
Yeah, and the characters.
It's so if it wasn't a well-written drama, none of that would matter.
Right.
But it is well written, like Game of Thrones. I hate to keep making that illusion, but basically, as we've discussed in other of our reviews, the bar for writing for TV, for network, like cable, and then bleeding over into movies and elsewhere has gotten so high because of shows. Not just like Game of Thrones, but other really well-written shows, 6 Feet Under, for example. Breaking Bad. They're just so well-written that, I'm glad like even the Sci-Fi Channel on a sci-fi show really raised the bar. What I love is that when things are happening and the characters are talking to each other, they have successfully created the fully immersive illusion that they're in a real world. They have fleshed out the backstory well enough that you feel like, okay, they're not winging this. They're not shooting from the hip. They know the political relationship between Earth and Mars and the Moon and the different players and the Belt, and they know the private companies and the different factions. It's all there.
The world building. It's world building done incredibly well.
They did. You always have to do enough world building that your story never gets to the bottom of your background, and they did that. We don't know how much deeper than that it goes, but it's deep enough that you never get to the bottom and you feel like you're in a real world, and I love that.
Well, and the other thing that I think is critical is that the characters have real relationships with each other, and the relationships evolve, and that's really important because, like as an example, when Jim Holden, who's the quote-unquote captain, if you will, right? He meets Joe Miller, who is the police officer on Ceres.
Yeah.
And there was tension building up to when they met with each other. You didn't know what kind of reaction they were going to have to each other. And that, to me, that's when you know your characters. That's when, when you're feeling that anticipation before two characters meet each other.
These guys,
Yeah,
what's going to go on with them? Because there's no heroes and villains, really.
Yeah.
It's just people with different motivations, different backgrounds, different
Exactly.
resources, etc. Again, like we've mentioned in other reviews, the best villains think they're the heroes. In this story, everyone's doing their own thing. Like they're just, there are some people who are like, that guy's a kind of a jerk. But they think that they're doing the right thing, for their faction, for Earth or for Mars or for whatever. And so sometimes you don't even know, like, should I be rooting for this guy or not? What do I want to have happen here? It's not even really clear. And that's, it does ask a lot of the audience. You got to pay attention to what's going on.
Absolutely.
But it's totally
it's
worth
complicated,
it.
yeah.
The payoff is totally worth it.
Yeah, it's the kind of show like Game of Thrones, like Black Flag.
Black Sails.
Black Sails.
That after you see an episode, you think, I loved it. I might need to watch that again.
Yeah.
To really let it sink in. That's a level of detail and complexity we're talking about here, and I love that. It's not something that you can't
fluff.
watch this while you're doing home or housework and walking around. You got to pay attention, and then even then you may need to just watch it again.
Mm-hmm. And the biggest thing in the show that you could say, hey, that's breaking the laws of science or whatever, is the alien element.
Yeah, but that's alien tech, right? So that's which again, plot-wise, it's great. So one rule of good storytelling is how is today unlike any other day, right? So you set up your backstory, but then now something new has got to happen that throws everything out of kilter.
Right.
And we have the perfect storm here where we have tensions between Earth, Mars, and the Belt getting to an absolute pinnacle.
Right, and then
right at a time, you throw in this wild card of this alien tech, and then now everyone's scrambling for that, and we don't know where it's from or what it's really going to be doing, and is it a good thing or is it a bad thing? And chaos ensues, and that's where the story is being told. And it's fantastic. And these characters that we care about now are getting caught up in this bigger story. That's another thing. It takes a lot of skill to balance the big overarching backstory and the individual stories of the characters. Some shows focus on one or the other, and I love it when you balance that well, where you're following these characters intimately, but they are getting caught up in this bigger story. They're not playing an unrealistic role in it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not like the universe, for some reason, is focusing all on this one guy. There's enough people that it makes sense, and it's very realistic, but they just happen to be at the center of this chaos, and how do they react to that?
And that when character writing is at this level, when you can start to understand the characters to a degree where you can actually ask yourself, what would the character do if they were put in that situation? And then you have an answer to that question. That means you know the characters, and that's why. And I do that for fun, just to see how well they're writing. Let me see if I feel like I understand these characters well enough. My favorite character, without a doubt, is the police officer.
Yeah,
he's fantastic.
Miller,
Miller is just so cool. I mean, his so far from season 1 to 2, at the end, he's joining.
He's on Venus.
Julie. Now he's joining Julie Mao in whatever evolution they're going through. Now my theory is in season 3, and I haven't seen any of it, and this is just my guesswork, is that they're truly evolving into like these other beings, a type of beings, like maybe even super beings.
Yeah.
And what are they? And what are they going to become?
Well, we don't know.
I know, but that's what's so cool about it. But I'm glad. I really hope that his character isn't gone, because I want to see more of him.
But he could be, right?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Sure. Yeah.
You kill off characters in a show like this. Anything can happen. No one character is indispensable. It's the other thing. A lot of good characters, a lot of characters you care about, but you realize no character is indispensable. The story can go on just fine. If any of them get killed, then the series can go on. You know what I mean? It's not like, this guy's died, I can't watch that. If there were a character like that, it was Miller, and yet he's been sidelined, if not completely dead.
Sure. They're also doing a good job of making you understand, like, where are the Martians at, and what's their motivations? And what we're seeing over and over again is these are real people with real concerns. The Belters are being used as slave labor.
Yeah.
And even though they're kind of rough around the edges and a little more violent than than Earth and
a little bit.
Well, a different kind of violence. They're more punch you in the face, where the Earth and Mars are more like drop a nuke on you. Right? But I'm really starting to identify with them. Like, they need a seat at that table, and they're being taken advantage of horribly.
Yeah.
And they want things like air and sunshine.
Right.
Where Earth has it all, and Earth has destroyed the ecology on the planet. Earth is struggling, from from how well humans have taken care of the Earth.
So, yeah, I like the fact that Belters have their own accent and slang.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
they really feel like there's a culture there too, which is so hard to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Makes
To-
perfect
to
sense
invent
too.
a
After
culture.
It doesn't seem
centuries.
forced.
I
Yeah.
love the fact that the Martians think of themselves as like Americans think of ourselves. They were the young, scrappy colony
Yep.
that had to innovate in order to survive. And so they have the best tech in the solar
Yes,
system.
yes.
The Martians do because they had to be the innovators.
Yep.
They weren't like we're Europe, the Earth. Right,
Right.
Europe
Right, I get it, yeah.
to
Absolutely.
Mars being the America in that they're the young and scrappy country.
So who are the Belters?
Yeah, I was
Where
going to
are
say
they?
that, who the
and
Belters
then the
then-
Belters are like Australia. They're like the penal colony
Yeah.
almost. No, seriously, yeah, the Belters were basically, as you said, they were not slave labor. They were like almost indentured servants.
Yeah.
Yeah. They have no choice. They have to continue to do it.
Yeah, and they were poorly treated, and they're just fighting for their rights
And
you know?
survival.
And survival.
Yeah.
And you do sympathize with them, but of course that also makes them the more desperate you are, the more willing you are to do
Crazy
desperate
stuff,
things, crazy
yeah.
things.
And
yeah.
one more thing about the show, and this is very important for good story writing, is what? It has to be
Sex.
unpredictable.
Oh, yeah, that too.
Yeah, there's definitely romances and relationships in this show, but there has to be that unpredictability. I have to be surprised. Now, this happens to us, especially when you're getting into our age range. You know, I've seen so many movies. It's very easy to predict plot
Yeah.
lines. And when I get surprised, I give the writers, a check.
So I've seen the first 2 episodes of season 3.
And
You
love it?
have.
It's even better. It gets even better, and as you say, unpredictable. I really have no idea where this story is going. I really have no idea. And every episode is so well written. The writing in season 3 is fantastic. So
So happy.
it's definitely living up to the first 2 seasons. So definitely, if you haven't seen The Expanse at all yet, we didn't really throw any spoilers out there. Watch the first 2 seasons. If you've watched the first 2 seasons, the season 3 has started. The first couple episodes have dropped. It's, again, fantastic. The best, I'm willing to say this, the best science fiction currently on television.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah.
The best science fiction, I think it's among the best science fiction to ever be on television in terms of all the things that we talked about. The science, the writing, the setting, it's all there.
World
I have
building,
I have no major complaints about the series. It's really hitting it in every way. So I hope that this sets a new bar, and we're going to see some science fiction and fantasy at this level going forward. Because this is now what I expect. Nothing.
Yeah,
anything,
it can't be any less
anything
than
less
this now,
will
right?
disappoint me.
Right.
They've spoiled us for anything.
For all
less.
eternity.
Yeah, it's true. I think we are in a way living in a golden age
Yeah.
of television. The writing is off the hook, and it is spoiling us. Now we see shows that 20 years ago we would have thought were fine, and now we're like, this is crap.
We can't even watch it.
Yeah, this is like unwatchable crap. Come on, where's the plot
Right.
development?
At this point, we deserve more TV like this. I think.
So guys, if you enjoy the show, you can go to our Patreon page. That's patreon.com/Alpha Quadrant and the number 6, and you can help support the show and make us do more episodes. You can give us ideas on stuff you'd like us to talk about. We are constantly talking about Alpha Quadrant 6 and shows that we want to do. We have a ton of ideas. There's a million TV shows out there, tons of movies out there. There's no end in sight.
He's a bottomless pit.
So help us, help you. We'll see you soon.